Welcome to Michigan Reimagined, presented by T.A. Forsberg and Wagoner Financial. And here's your host, Chris Buck.
So, artificial intelligence is here, and it seems to be here to stay. So many are tinkering with its abilities, but others are diving into the deep end to become experts and assisting others with their journeys. Here to speak on his IT business and its AI evolution is the founder of Super Web Pros, Mr. Jesse Flores. Welcome to the show, Jesse.
Hey, Chris, man. Glad to be here, buddy. Thanks.
Absolutely. Thanks for being here. So, let's start a little bit with your roots. Where are you from? Where'd you get educated? And how'd you get into, the web development and IT? And how'd you get started?
Yeah, great question. So where am I from? I refer to myself as a displaced Texan. I am part of the Texas diaspora. No, I grew up in Houston, Texas. Spent most of my formative years there. Went to Notre Dame for my undergrad, my first master's. Go Irish! Loving our season this year, by the way. Then I moved over to Atlanta, Georgia. Started my corporate career. Did my MBA over at Emory there. Interestingly, I never studied web development, computer science, or anything like that. I studied economics and theology. I always say, had I been born 400 years ago, I could have been the guy that invented indulgences. But I studied economics, theology, found myself in corporate management, found myself really getting into business in Atlanta. And then, like many people my age, around 2010, we saw all the .com millionaires and billionaires. I left my very cush corporate job to prospect out on my own, start my first tech startup, which did okay until it didn't, as tech startups did in 2010. And then ultimately we ended up moving to Michigan, almost 10 years ago, which is crazy. And I started Super Web Pros around then, mostly because I was supposed to be 2 years in Michigan and back to Atlanta, where I would go back to a cush job. Yeah. But 2 years has somehow morphed into way more than 2 years, and business has done well. So here we are.
That's fantastic. Good. And my next question was, what made you decide to have your own firm versus stay with an established company? So you already answered that one.
Yeah, man. I was chasing the IPO in 2010. So was everybody else my age.
Right. No, I lived in Seattle in the 90s and early 2000s. So you get it. I had a close-up view on all that stuff happening. That's great. So, Super Web Pros is your brand. At least, I don't know if the AI component is going to be a different company or a different entity, but talk about the Super Web Pros platform. Like, who do you have a wheelhouse of your typical customers? What kind of services do you offer? What's your geography on the types of companies you're able to help?
Yeah, great question. So for most of the last couple of years, our primary focus has been on what I would call kind of brochure websites, your standard home, service, about, contact, right? Kind of brochure websites for local Main Street types of businesses. We do tons and tons of those. And then we've also done pretty sophisticated e-commerce. We work with a couple of e-commerce brands, some locally, many not locally, on more enterprise level e-commerce. Over the last probably 18 months, though, maybe 24 months at this point, one of the things we've been watching very closely since ChatGPT became the fastest app to hit 1 million daily users, has been AI. Now, I've been following the AI industry for the better part of a decade. While Super Web Pros really focuses on websites and e-commerce, prior to that, I had a software engineering company, which did custom web and mobile applications, largely for angel or VC-backed firms. And as part of that business, I was already paying attention to things like AI and machine learning models, semantic web, all these kinds of things. We ended up focusing largely on websites because it was scalable and something that, from a developer standpoint, we could do very, very quickly and with better margins and less complexity. When I started to watch the AI markets come into maturity, and I started to see where these things are starting to go, it occurred to me that we were uniquely situated to capitalize on this. And frankly, it is going to be so much more transformative than people realize. This year in particular, 2025, I think, is going to be the breakout year for a lot of reasons, which we can go into later if you like, that it felt almost irresponsible for us not to spend time and energy focusing on this. So over the next couple of months, we'll actually be winding down the brochure part of the business. We're developing a new product called Smart Sites. Smart Sites are AI-powered websites. We believe the web is going to be AI first and conversational, and I can talk about more about that later. And so we think that's going to be the preeminent interaction going forward. And then we also have an AI transformation process that we've put together in order to help other businesses start to implement AI. When we started this journey ourselves, starting, like many people with ChatGPT, I mean, we've seen massive returns over the last. We had a banner year last year, and we just got started. So we want to help other companies be able to take advantage of that. So we've got a lot of places to go, man. A lot of places.
No
to go.
doubt. All right. So there's a flywheel effect, right? So this has been gathering momentum, and you think it's just going to explode in 2025.
100%.
Yep. And so, for those not indoctrinated into, ChatGPT, I think everyone would probably say, yeah, I can tell you that I've heard of that before, and maybe I've tinkered around with it a little bit. But are those corporate entities? Can you explain a little bit about who owns ChatGPT and who are their competitors? And are there people that are breaking out, as Google or Meta, or, you have all these different competitors? Is one becoming better than the other, or are there equal but different functionality between two big names or five big names that might be known anecdotally by our listeners?
This is a great question. So OpenAI is the company behind ChatGPT. They've received bukus of funding from Microsoft and others. I think any tech company right now is any large tech company. Google, you've seen Apple just released Apple Intelligence. Google is really focusing on the Gemini model. OpenAI is getting some steam. There are companies like, we really like Claude, or Anthropic is the name of the company. They're a European company. Facebook has released its own large language model called Llama. Llama is really great because it's open sourced and highly configurable. All of these specific, the constellation of LLMs is probably a little less important for someone that's never heard of these things than the underlying technology, which is essentially a really smart wrapper around all sorts of information, whether you're talking about global information on the internet, which is what ChatGPT is sort of has as its training set and as its response set, or Perplexity, which is sort of eating some market share a little bit at the moment, but I think it'll pick up from Google. But the real value starts to come when you connect these things to either your data or your systems. And that's when you start to make your systems smart. And that's where the real power starts to be.
Okay, so first I want to just give a nod to one of my friends, the Forsberg Real Estate Company. When it comes to creating the best living and working environments in the community, no one does it better than my friends at the Forsberg Real Estate Company. Brent Forsberg and his team create vibrant, holistic communities that inspire growth and encourage belonging. Focusing on building stronger connections for people, the Forsberg Project is always in tune with balancing relationships to create the optimum human experience. Since the 1950s, the Forsberg team has been enhancing the qualities of life in the communities they serve by following the principles of regenerative growth and aligning the resources and tools available. Reach out to my friends at the Forsberg Real Estate Company by calling 517-349-9330 or check out their website at lansingrealestate.com. So there's all of that you just said. And as a layperson who did some research before going into this conversation, maybe talk to that audience who's saying, okay, I get that I need to figure out how to incorporate AI into my business, and I don't know what the heck you're talking about, right? So, how would I engage Jesse Flores and his team to, what's the low-hanging fruit? How would you, incorporate yourself with a small, medium, large business who is saying, we're still kind of chiseling on stone and we need to, fire things up a little bit, and maybe even talk about your 2025 executive guide to AI transformation, right? So you created a document. Why don't we start there? What is that document and what basically does that entail?
Yeah. So to answer your question, that's probably where I would start. I would say,
okay.
Look, if you're first of all, if you're chiseling stone,
metaphorically,
don't even worry about AI. Just go ahead and sell the business and get what you can out of it and move on, do something else. But because what you really need for AI to be transformative for you is you need to have, at a minimum, data, workflows, and a team. If you don't have those things, you're probably too early for anything beyond kind of your basic learn how to use ChatGPT, and really, if you don't know how to use it, you should learn how to use it.
Right.
So this is the way that we would sort of walk someone through a process. We think of AI growth as sort of like 4 steps. The first phase of this is kind of an explore and experiment phase. And all of this is outlined in our 2025 Executive Guide to AI Transformation. And if you go to the AIX.org, I've also got like a free training that you can click and watch, which kind of goes through some of these step by step. And I go into more detail than time will allow here. But stage 1 is explore and experiment. During this particular aspect of your journey, you're just trying to figure out how large language models work and what AI can do. A lot of people treat AI like it's a little smarter Google. How to, find me information. I'll put a question and I expect a response.
Right.
AI is way more powerful than that when you start to think of it like an assistant or a partner. And there are specific processes for doing that. For instance, setting up a frame and saying, I'm trying to solve this problem. Can you help me with that? How would you structure that? Okay, it gives you a response. Okay, based on this response, how would you do this next thing? Or here's what I think. How would you go next? So starting to move from this perspective with AI as like an input-output machine to like a partner with technology. It's a very different way of approaching technology. We've never had to approach technology like this. So in that first stage, explore and experiment, you or ideally somebody on your team is starting to play with these things, figure out how prompting works, how prompt engineering works, figuring out which kinds of data and documents you want to upload, creating your own small micro custom GPTs. That's kind of that first phase. Now, one of the things we suggest for anybody that is interested in working on AI, particularly if you are the executive level, is you've got to find AI champions in your business, and they are there. There are people who are tinkering with ChatGPT or Perplexity or Claude. I guarantee you there's someone in your organization who understands the things I'm saying.
Yep.
You want to uncover that person as quickly as possible, and they're going to become an asset. Because as you start to move into the next phase, where you start to organize and align resources, what you're looking to do here is start to take some of the experiments that you might have done in phase 1 or that the AI champion would have done in phase 1, and now start to turn them into standard processes. So maybe we had an SOP that went like this in the old world. Well, with AI, that SOP, first of all, is 10% of the effort it was before, but now it goes like this. And you're going to want that champion to really help make sure that 1 or 2 or 3 pilots are kind of working the way that they should be. Now, one of the things that's really, really key for AI to be successful inside of your own business is you've got to have data, as I mentioned before, ideally some form of knowledge base. Now, this could be organized folders in a Google Drive or a Dropbox or OneDrive or whatever. It's best if it's structured in some form of a knowledge base that's categorized and tagged, because as you move through your journey, the data works like this: garbage in, garbage out.
Right.
If I have really poor quality data, I am going to get really poor quality output, right? So in this second stage, what you're starting to do is also organize your information, create templates of information, frameworks for people to start following in order to start getting people used to using structured information and making sure that your information is properly structured for stage 3, where you start to integrate and optimize your use of AI. In this phase, now you're going to start connecting AI to your data. So we have a product called Brainy. What Brainy essentially does is connects your knowledge base to a large language model. It could be Claude, it could be a Llama, it could be OpenAI. That's part of the thing we'd have to work with you to figure out.
Got it.
But what it does is it turns your organization into a brain. Now, what do I mean by that? If you sit down at a table with 10 people in your company, every one of those people knows something. We all talk about and hear about silos of information. You see this especially with people when they start to retire and they leave. And it's like, oh, that person knows all this information. How are we going to replace them?
Right.
The way you replace them, or we would say augment the business, is you dump all of that information into a knowledge base and connect that knowledge base to an AI. Let me give a quick story. We had a woman in August who just went on maternity leave, and she did a project about 6 or 8 months ago. And it was a very complex project, took her several months to get it done. And thankfully, because we have the discipline of documentation, most of what we needed to get done was documented. Fast forward 8 or 9 months, she goes off on maternity leave, and a problem arises with this particular product. And this is a complex system. One of our other developers comes in and is able to now talk to our AI. What did she do there? How did she approach this? Why is this done this way, right? And all of a sudden, this thing that would have taken us weeks or months while she's on maternity leave to go back and refigure out is done in hours and weeks, right? So it's way faster for us to get this thing done. Similar, we've had similar kinds of outputs with other kind of development projects. Now, we're a development company, but this isn't just for development. All of our SOPs are connected to via Brainy to our AI. So anybody, we get a new hire in, we say, we need you to run. Let's say we hire a new marketing person. We need you to run this campaign. I don't have to train them. They can just ask Brainy, hey, what's our process for this? And Brainy will say, oh, this is your process, da 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 da. And then it links to the appropriate knowledge-based articles so they can dive in if they need to and go through more detail. That onboarding and that transfer of human capital and of human knowledge plummets to near zero when you've connected your data. And this is stage 3, but you only get to stage 3 if you've been building the muscles in stage 1 and 2.
Right.
Now, what you find is as you start to connect your data and train your people, you then find opportunities for innovation. And this, I think, is where there's going to be just a ton of gold for those companies that are willing to really kind of go after it. For example, we've been working for a number of years on this product called Super Sites. The idea was lead optimized websites for industries, and it was taking us some time to figure out how to build the right workflows. When I saw AI, getting some momentum, I realized, this isn't the future of the web. We scrapped that project. But our knowledge of AI is now allowing us to innovate a brand new product, which we call Smart Sites. And Smart Sites are websites that are going to be connected to your website's data and proprietary knowledge bases, because we believe that the future of the web is going to be what's called agentic. I can explain that in a minute. The point for this is that as you start to get rolling in this journey and you start to you figure out how to connect your data, you realize this data that you've been throwing away in emails or in folders or wherever, or has been stored in people's head, is a gold mine. It is the biggest asset you have that you do not realize is there. And when you put an AI wrapper on top of it, your ability to create new products, new services, new offerings very quickly skyrockets. And we came up with the idea for conversational sites 8 weeks ago. It'll beat a market by the end of the month. Right? Like that's how fast we're able to move because of our ability to use these tools.
Got it. That's a great overview and quite a bit of depth. And just to be fair to the audience who might be a little fatigued by the nuance of that. No. That's honestly, that's exactly what I wanted to hear. Because in my opinion, that creates a lot of trust and confidence that you're this passionate and this knowledgeable about kind of where this is headed. So talk to me a little bit about concerns and regulation and cybersecurity and like all of this kind of stuff, right? So clearly the macro concern, in the sci-fi movies is that the robots are going to take over, right? So how does incorporating AI into my business and my website and all that kind of stuff, it seems like a little of the Wild West. I mean, what a great tool. And, is it regulated? Should it be regulated? Are there... Are you able to help people with firewalls to make sure that if they start putting this stuff in, that their trade secrets or that their stuff isn't going to get hacked and someone else can take their stuff and make it better or that kind of thing?
That's a great question. So one of the things that people may not be aware of is that when you are uploading your data to ChatGPT, for instance, by default, any conversation you have or any data you upload is being used to train the model going forward. Or to train the LLM going forward. So you can opt out of it, but it's important to recognize that if you're just getting started, I would never put anything particularly sensitive inside of an Anthropic or a ChatGPT. Don't do it. It's not secure.
Okay.
But the way that we approach this, because we've been thinking about these things for a long time, and frankly, I don't want any of my trade stuff out there, right, is all of our systems we build and we host, certainly in the cloud, but on servers that either we own or that we would set a client up. These are servers that are probably on DigitalOcean. We don't typically use Google. We might use Amazon occasionally, but we would set up these private servers, private databases, private knowledge bases in order to make sure that that information is secure and protected, because it's such a big asset. Right. Because it's such a big asset. So one of the reasons why I would say, look, you should work with someone like us and use proprietary models or even the APIs as opposed to the consumer models, is because that's how you protect your information. And if you're really trying to make your organization smart, that data is an asset. It needs to be secure. It needs to be protected. It needs to be isolated and sandboxed from the models that can train on it.
Got it. Okay. We all need a place to call home, and Chris Silker of Keller Williams Advantage and Team offers the expertise that you're looking for. He's helped clients navigate the complicated world of real estate in mid-Michigan for over 10 years, providing the best information possible at the right time to empower the best decisions. Whether you're a first-time home buyer looking for a local expert to guide you from point A to point B, searching for an income property in the competitive Lansing market, right-sizing your life, or searching for your dream home, Chris Silker and the Advantage and Team is a name to trust in Greater Lansing real estate. Visit advantageandteam.kw.com or call Chris Silker directly at 517-242-9251 today to find the home of your dreams. All right. So that's how can people learn more and engage you? And I would imagine there are other people out there that provide similar services, but clearly you're the best. I mean, I'm impressed as heck because this is an area that I don't have really much experience in. And if I were to vet a company to take on, I would want them to talk very much like you do.
Well, because, I appreciate that.
Yeah. But so is this all going to be under the SuperWeb Pros brand, or are they going to be equal but different companies that you're operating?
Yeah, it's a great question. So we have created a new website called the AIXorg.com. And on that site, we've got a couple of resources to help people get started. One, you can download a webinar that I've given where I kind of walk through the 4 stages I just described in a lot more detail with some visual aids. So it's a little bit easier for people to kind of see what we're talking about. You can also download our 2025 executive guide there as well and book a complimentary strategy call with me or someone on our team to kind of figure out where you are in that journey. We've devised and developed a 6-step process for AI transformation. For people that are familiar with EOS, Entrepreneur Operating System by Gino Wickman, we are an EOS company, and we built our AIX framework in a way that would feel familiar to a company running on EOS. It's got 6 core facets. We've got an AIX Compass assessment that we would expect, or we would ask an executive team to take before they work with us in order for them to be able to understand really where they are and start a conversation internally about where they are and what's actually feasible for them to potentially go. We would then work with them to say, okay, here's your assessment. Let's talk through this and let's figure out what your roadmap looks like. Typically, the roadmap would look something like this. You would do your assessment. We would debrief it with you. We would then want to dive into where we think the lowest hanging fruit is for a successful pilot. Might not be the most impactful part of your business, but we really want for you and your team to experience success and also get the coaching and mentoring that you need. This is brand new. And I realize when we're talking, some of the things I'm saying might just sound really overwhelming to people. And it should. It is. It is the biggest transformational technology that I've seen in my lifetime, which is not super long, but long enough to have seen a couple of transformations. I do remember the internet and the days before the internet. It's massive. And I think you want to have a steady hand kind of walking you through this process because the learning curve is massive. Now, after we kind of work with you to figure out what the right pilot is, we'll then work with you to implement that pilot and then get you on a roadmap that is incremental and right-sized for your business to kind of work through the different facets of your organization in order to roll this out in a way that you are starting to maximize the results for different processes inside of your business.
Got it. Well, it's all fascinating stuff. Remind us of the website so our listeners can get to you, download this document, and then be able to engage you.
Yeah. So the AIXorg.com. And you can also find me on LinkedIn. My name is Jesse Flores. You can also go to superwebpros.com. We will be linking over to AIX as appropriate. And Super Web Pros will be the home of our smart sites. And for anybody that's actually thinking about SEO this year, don't waste any money on that. You should start thinking about AI. It is transforming search. Google's been very clear about this. Their CEO in their most recent release of Gemini was like, hey, this is impacting our business. We're really rethinking our strategy. Don't waste any money on SEO. We've stopped selling SEO. So if you're thinking about SEO this year or a website redesign, don't waste time or money on that. Go to superwebpros.com and figure out how smart sites are going to help you get ready for AI, because the way AI and search, the way AI works with search is very different than the way search used to work. And then we can link over to AIX from there.
Fantastic. Way to mic drop at the very end of this. Don't spend money on SEO. Call Super Web Pros.
Yeah.
Good for you. Well, thank you so much. We've been talking to the founder of Super Web Pros, Jesse Flores, and discussing the depths of IT. Appreciate you being here.
Hey, Chris, always a pleasure, man. Thank you.
And I'd like to give a final shout out to all my loyal sponsors: Forsberg Real Estate Company, Wagoner Financial, Triterra Environmental, Good Marketing, Keller Williams Advantage and Team, Michigan Rise, and the attorneys at Foster Swift. They're all fantastic people worth the call. And if you found the show as a one-off, I'd remind you that to follow and subscribe to Michigan Reimagined on YouTube, Facebook, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and pretty much anywhere else you find your podcast. This is Chris Buck signing off from Michigan Reimagined.